Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the School of Self Worth. I am your host, Nicole Song. I had such a beautiful conversation with a powerful entrepreneur, and I'm so excited to introduce her to you. Anna Radulovski is the founder of Women Tech Network with 150,000 members across 179 countries, as well as Coding Girls and Executive Women in Tech. She is the visionary behind the Women in Tech Global Conference and the Chief in Tech Summit. And she is a sought after keynote speaker at industry conferences and serves as a mentor at the Founder Institute. Anna is passionate about building inclusive tech communities and empowering women to succeed as leaders. And she has so many incredible tips and insights in today's episode, as well as an extraordinary story of self worth. So make sure you stay tuned. And before we get started, if you are a high achieving Asian American corporate leader who wants to reverse cultural conditioning so you can come out of hiding and own your authentic voice, DM me authentic on Instagram at Nicole Song and let's chat. Okay, friends, let's get into this incredible conversation. Welcome, Anna. Thank you so much for coming to the School of Self Worth. I love having you here.
Great to have, great to be here. Thanks for having me. You can tell I'm very excited to be here. Yeah.
Yes, I'm so excited that you're here. I shared a little bit in the intro about Anna, and like one of the things I'm really excited to talk to you about, you really support women in tech in particular is like, I would feel like your mission, it feels like so much about what you do. And one of the things I find, I work specifically with Asian American women around their self-worth and being able to be comfortable being themselves and be in their voice in the workplace. And I'm sure that you encounter so much of this in general with women. And so I like to frame that up so that we can really have that conversation about self worth, because I feel like such a big piece of the challenge for women, especially I'm sure in tech environments, which is very, male dominated, is looking at that piece of self worth. And what I always love to hear first from anyone who comes on to the podcast is to share your own journey with that. And I'm curious if you could share for yourself, like, how did you start to really understand and see self worth is something really essential and important to your life and how you live your life these days?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. Well, when I think about it, it's hard perhaps to name one single moment. I think it's as life is a journey. It's like a series. It is a series of experiences where you have to choose your own value instead of waiting for that external validation sometimes getting that experience. And just there are some pivotal moments, of course, in one's life. And Yeah, I think that for me, perhaps one of the moments was that when I realized that no one will advocate for me as fiercely as I will do that for myself, because your worst, you need to communicate it. You need, and it's not based on how others see you. It's based on how you are stepping up and how you are showing up. So it's so much about how you show up. I also have, when I was writing my book, I was reflecting, and when I in a chapter about negotiations and negotiations for your worth, I was reflecting and I thought, what is self worth? What does it mean to kind of know your worth, to show your worth? And I came to the conclusion that some of the most successful also people, I think that they have this entitlement. For me, it's about having that healthy entitlement that actually pushes you forward, that you believe that you deserve all the great things in life, and your self-worth is your birthright. It means that we already, as individuals, we already are worth of all the great things in life: love, different career opportunities, if you will, leadership roles, impact, positive impact, and building all the great things. Because we are brought to this world, we have a purpose, and our self-worth is already like in us. We're just on a journey of discovering it, and I think communicating it to others so others would see it. So when you are, in that regards, you need to be your biggest advocates. I think the challenge is very often women are conditioned, especially in different cultures, to be nice, not to speak too loud, not to be, kind of even a little bit, not to show that worth in a way. So they, because they were raised like that, I don't question it's good or bad. Like it's not never black or white. I say it's like sometimes and oftentimes you have to unlearn tons of things to actually get where you want to get. Not to wait for someone, for example, to promote you or to advocate for you, but to ask for that. To ask for that promotion, of course, to back it up with data, but to ask for that promotion, to indicate that it's something that you want. So I think it's crucial.
And where would you say then for yourself, like in your own backstory, how did you start to come into that? I know that you're originally from Ukraine, and so probably you're also navigating being in different cultures and what that was like. Like, where would you say for yourself, like, how did you start to come into it? Because I feel like even, I don't know all the different places that you've worked, but when you're navigating lots of different countries and cultures, like it just must be a different level of that. So how has that challenge helped you? Both, well, I guess maybe hindered you and then also helped you.
I think it helped me a lot. I think at first, when you kind of got out, I mean, out of your bubble and move into your first, I guess, country where you stay for the longest time, I think the first thing that happened to me that, you know, you have to build new network. You need to kind of build new connections, especially if you move really young in your career and you're like not attached to university perhaps or to a job. So it kind of can be really tricky. But when I'm looking back, I'm really grateful that I had that experience, that I had an opportunity to live and work in different countries. And even right now, we have these global communities of 150,000 members of women in tech and allies from 179 countries. And I'm learning every single day, from all of them. And I think there is no kind of stage at which you say, hey, I've got it all. I think that the world is teaching you all the time. And I think the best you can do is to kind of immerse yourself in this diverse, intercultural kind of world if you can. So I would even recommend that. I think that um, it comes with a certain set of challenges, but I think it's more about how are you able to learn from them, or even kind of turn challenges into opportunities. Not to see them as, of course you will be like, it will be uncomfortable and you won't like it, and it's like, especially if you have to learn a language or stuff like that. But I think that with time, when you start to enjoy it, and I think that it enriches you really as a professional. And I think in living sometimes in one country or working just in one, like let's say, more not so diverse, I would say, company sometimes, that also could be just limiting you in a way, maybe how you lead or innovate. And then if someone diverse kind of is on your team, you don't know suddenly how to behave, but that's okay as long as you're open-minded, and you have a growth mindset. I think that you can figure it out and make a really good move.
Yeah, and I'm curious because I have questions that are related to like tips and support for women who are in either in tech or going into tech. I mean, my women tend to already probably have been in there, but I am curious also for you because I know that you're a mother and like it reminds me of how we're always on this journey of like how does our self-worth shift and change over and over again? Like how do we keep evolving as
Hmm.
humans? And like you're a mom and then now you're also putting out a book. And so I'm curious for you, like how does each time you come up with something that might challenge your feeling of worthiness or value, how do you approach that? And I'm curious about motherhood because I feel like that's one that can definitely bring that up for women.
Yeah, I think thanks for asking that. I think first weeks, days, weeks, month, first, I think even 3 years. I think this have been some of the most challenging years. Right now, my daughter is much bigger, but I think this is really hard. I think you don't really realize what are you getting into. I worked, I mean, I worked until the last day of my, due date, kind of delivery date, and I I think I didn't understand what I'm getting myself into. I thought that, just kind of give your kid to the baby later on, a couple of months later, to a daycare, and just kind of makes you feel okay. And you don't understand before you have your own child. You cannot have that feeling, I would say, that how it's going to be like. And for all, mothers, it's going to be different, but I think it changes you a lot. Like suddenly you're responsible not for yourself, but for this little baby and then kid who cannot yet take care of themselves. But as they grow up, you're learning from them. And I think you're just like they question you, they are curious, they make some interesting assumptions, sometimes they make you think. So I think they really help you discover your self-worth. You realize that you didn't know you could be as, this as patient, I would say, in a way, understanding, loving, forgiving, caring, and at the same time, if you create a system, you could still have your career.
Yeah. And what would you even say to women who either have children or are struggling with that integration or are wanting to have children? Because I feel like many of my women listening are probably ones who might want to and then are nervous about how it could affect their career or like the dramatic changes that can happen. What do you recommend in terms of like I love how you're saying you're more empathic and you're more compassionate and you may or may not have bosses who understand that or subscribe to that. And
True.
so what do you support, like how do you recommend to them, like how do they step into that in a really powerful way for themselves?
I would say it's about a couple of things. It's about well, it depends which stage you're at. Because if you want to have a kid and you're like want to kind of inform your boss, or if you already have a kid, or making that transition actually from maternity leave, if you have that, to work, I think that could be really tricky in making that transition, because motherhood guilt. You still might be adjusting, your body is recovering. So kind of be more compassionate to that. But you mentioned something really important, is your whether your boss is supportive or not. I think
Mm.
that that's something to think about, where you're headed, in a way, which company you're working for, what are their values, what are their benefits, and also inquiring at your company what are the benefits, for working parents, and suggesting a schedule that will work better for you once you discover what works for you at that stage. It's really, really hard to kind of, it's shifting, the different stages of, as the kid grows, in a way. So at first you want to definitely make sure that you set some boundaries, you have some non-negotiables. I'm a fan of blocking time for personal priorities before even work fills up the calendar, because we always prioritize work. And I think that is fundamentally wrong, because it will get done anyways. It's so important, you cannot not get that done. So you want to make sure, how do I block of time for the most important parts of, of my life, whether that is exercise, quality time with my child or my kid, or it's could be something else that is deeply important to you, like dinner with your family. So what are your non-negotiables, and how can you also kind of set that boundaries? And I would say is also important kind of to ditch the guilt, so you don't have to also do it all, and also prioritizing what matters to you. And I would say also kind of find support also from your colleagues, so because they probably, you won't have women, men, who also work in parents, so they will understand you. And I think that if you like building this work kind of bond in a way that you connect also on a deeply personal level. And I think that that is very important for making this work life integration also work for you. And yeah, I think when you're at the right place, even if your boss, for example, maybe a manager, didn't have anyone on their team, even working mothers, it really depends. I think it's, if you talk about huge companies, they have strong policies, and I think that you can, um, you know, actually learn about them and understand what are you entitled to as part of your compensation. Or even if such policy doesn't exist, you can also even propose and say, hey, well, this is important, and this is, I believe, important not just for me but for people. Flexibility, for example, if someone is just work from office. But again, it really depends on who is your employer. I think if you're in a healthy workplace, so to say, I think there tons of understanding people, because people have kids, so it's, you're not the first one, you're not the last one. But yeah, definitely giving it also time to make it work for you, because in the beginning it's kind of more challenging, but it gets better. I mean, it's just life.
Yeah. That's so good to hear. Thank you so much. Well, this brings me to the next piece, which is interesting around like the self worth journey, because you've done many things. Like you founded Coding Girls, you founded Women Tech, and that can take a huge amount of like self worth to be like, I'm going to be this person who's founding. Now you have right this huge network with Women Tech, and I'm sure at the time, I don't know that you said, "Oh yeah, I'm going to have found a network with 150,000 people." It probably started much smaller than that. But if you could talk
Yes.
about, because there's women out there who are thinking about pivoting and they're thinking about what could be next after their tech careers. And for you, like what was the big step forward to say, okay, like I'm going to be the person who sees a need and I'm going to do something about it. And like Coding Girls, right? If you could share what those both of the networks are about or what Coding Girls is about too as well.
Yeah, when I started with Coding Girls, it actually, what motivated me is when I got passionate, as I like to call it, about the problem, why there are so few women in technology. And some of the sources, as I was doing the research, I even did my own like kind of mini research slash survey. I was even interviewing women at conferences, like video and written forms. So I wanted to know like answers, why these women who are there, what kind of motivated them to get into technology and why they stay, what do they love about technology. And then I thought, well, okay, well, let me just kind of do this workshop, for girls to see if they're interested, if they're excited about technology. So I invited at that time a colleague of mine who got very excited also about this idea, and we also had a bunch of people also support us, including my co-founder of Women Tech Network. So lots of also male allies. I think it's very important to mention that because I think that very often it can feel really lonely. But if you surround yourself also both with women in technology, whether internal or external, but also male allies, I think it can really make a difference. So, and we organized the workshop on Scratch, and we saw that girls were so excited. And we thought, well, this must be not that. So we tried a couple of more workshops to do, hosted a couple more workshops. That was even more exciting. I think we even did like a mini course or something. But then also I was having conversations with parents, was trying to understand what they're into. Some of them were also working in technology. And then women started to reach out to us as we started also hosting like different meetups. And I was inviting them to speak, to share their journey, as I wanted to understand, what inspired them, why they stayed, what they love about this field. And later on we started also to receive like from the community, they saw from the community of other of the network as we were growing it. There were some requests. It was like, can we start a coding girls chapter like in our country or so? And I thought, well, that's interesting, of course, let me just kind of help you also launch it. And step by step we started kind of growing and scaling. But at the moment, I realized that coding girls and girls, women don't want to be called girls. So we probably need also to be doing something. And I saw the gap because as women were sharing about their challenges, I realized that there are some really serious challenges, and that's why we don't have so many women in technology. So we started organizing also more like even from in addition to meetups, we started organizing career networking events where we were connecting also companies who are valuing diversity and inclusion and wanted to hire also women in technology. And they started reaching out to us, just saying, hey, women just don't apply. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Maybe, you can help us. So we're doing this career networking events, connecting companies and women in technology with different opportunities, also having some inspirational talks where women could share about their journeys. And yeah, general networking also with his fellow women in tech to build the community. And we started growing. And, 2020, COVID took us, out of surprise. And we had more than 50 events scheduled across the globe, and we had to cancel them in a bit because suddenly it wasn't safe to do this anymore. So we're like, okay, what are we gonna do now? We didn't want to let go of our team. Our team wasn't that big, but I mean, it was still our team. We cared for them. And we thought, okay, we took like a week off or so. And then we were reflecting and thinking, what can we do in the current situation? And we thought, well, wait a minute, we're women in technology, so we can do, technology could help us connect women. And then if it can help us connect, why don't we do it like global? Because we don't have, limitation, we don't have borders. It's not, women in technology, or the lack of women in technology is not like one kind of a regional program. It's everywhere an issue. Everywhere you have, there are not enough women in technology, so to say. And then we pivoted in this huge global conference. It was actually thrilling. I still don't know how I've managed to pull it off just like in a couple of months. Like right now, maybe when I'm sharing it, it just feels like, well, it's normal. But we had, I think, the very first conference, we had 780 speakers or something, or maybe 850. I don't remember exactly. It was crazy. I mean, and we introduced this global ambassador program, where the goal is to connect locally community in a certain country, city, with the global community, and we still do that. I just in a couple of months we had more than 4,000 global ambassadors, and right now we have 12,000 global ambassadors, 12,400, I think, the last time I checked. So we've been growing, during the last 5 years. And this year, we in May 2020, 22nd, um, uh, 22nd of May, we're going to have our sixth edition of the Women in Tech Global Conference. And it's, exciting as usual. And some people, especially it warms my heart when some people are saying, oh, this is going to be my fifth conference. This is going to be my fourth conference. Or during the very first of the Women in Tech Global Conference virtual conference, I met this amazing woman and we're still friends. And I think that's, what's about. It's about small and big impact, because sometimes you can touch one's soul, and you don't know what impact can you make on their journey. Sometimes they tell me that advice, or a person I met, or a talk I heard, or a mentor I met, at your mentoring platform, that changed my career. Or I was awarded the global awards, and then a major media outlet in my country shared about me. That was insane. And I think the moments like that, they're like this little this notes of appreciation that warm your heart. And especially, when things get tough, you are reminded of why you're doing that. Why are you doing that? Because things will get tough always. I mean, it's never easy. It's a journey. And you need, in order to keep kind of, you have to have a vision to keep going. You need to know where you're going, what is the impact you want to achieve. But at the same time, it's about kind of reflecting how far you've come, and what impact you made, and why it's important that you keep pushing even when things get tough.
Yeah, that's such a powerful story, and thank you so much for sharing, because it really is, like, I think sometimes when we see these big networks like you have, that you're like, "Oh, you only see how big that was, but we don't remember how small it was to begin with," right? And then taking all of those steps and holding that vision and then pivoting, like you said, during the pandemic so that you could be where you are today, which is just incredible. And now I feel like you're on yet another journey of self-worth, probably with your book, right? And so because you're
Yeah.
launching a book, Chief in Tech. And could you tell us a little bit more about like the idea for this and what it's been like for you to put this book together and your experience of that?
Yeah, thanks for asking. It's actually been an amazing journey. I mean, the amount of work I thought I have to put into writing this book was just much more than I thought I would. But I'm really grateful for that experience. It's the reason behind the book. There are actually a couple of reasons. Number one, around 10 years ago, I really felt this urge that I want to write a book. I didn't know what it should be, neither maybe I even had enough years of experience, as I like to put it, quote unquote. Um, but I thought, I want to write a book. And, 10 years later, I wrote a book. It's going to be released, and it feels really surreal, because the journey I see, from 10 years, 2015, now 2025. So 10 years ago, that journey, wow, what a journey it has been. And I thought that I learned a lot, and it feels like a good moment to share it with the world. At the same time, for me, it was not just about sharing my experiences, but also I wanted to learn from other leaders and to share their advice with our global community, but also to put them in the spotlight, because I think it's there are not enough role models out there. So everyone who is a senior leader, for example, especially women who made a big impact, if I could share their stories, if I could amplify their knowledge and advice they shared, I think that for me is so powerful. That's what I did as part of my book writing journey. I interviewed over 50 C-level executives, also thought leaders on gender studies, leadership studies, um, in order to build a guide. So I like to call it, you may call it a practical guide for women to get into leadership roles and also stay there. So it's about actionable advice, strategies, practical examples from women also who were there, who made it, despite all the barriers. And that was so powerful. I actually loved every bit, every single interview I had. I loved it. I enjoyed it so much. I think it was a very, I'm really grateful for that, I must say. So, and it was such an incredibly generous opportunity from the leaders also for me to share their time with me. And I feel, very, very grateful for that. I'm also feel very grateful for the possibility to write the book. When publisher reached out to me and said, "Hey, we actually announced Chief in Tech book that we want to publish," and they reached out to us Wiley and said that, "Hey, do you want to go with us?" And I thought, well, this is definitely a reputable, publisher, and they have experience and expertise. So I really appreciate that opportunity and that knowledge that they shared. I think that it's just the amount of work is really unimaginable, and I think having experts to guide you and kind of channel your creative energy into more structured, but at the same time without kind of limiting you, so you were like on that journey, that was really really helpful. So the interviews will also, in the I think that it both an excitement but also a responsibility, because you want people to be using the advice that you're sharing. And I understand that sometimes it can work, sometimes it might not work, and I won't be there to guide them, but they can of course reach out to me if they have any follow-up questions. So yeah, well, ultimately Chief in Tech is about breaking the silicon ceiling, so breaking the all the barriers, invisible barriers, and making an impact. So how, for example, in the last chapter, I share a thought about both in a way giving back and paying it forward. When I'm reflecting on a note I saw once in a co-working space, it said, "Leave people better than you found them." And then kind of stick with me, because I thought, how do we leave people than we found them? Of course, it's not like we literally found them, but we encounter and people are sent into our life for a reason. So how can we, whoever is working with us, whoever we meet at different events or conferences, how can we be thinking of, not what can I get from this person, but how can I help this person? And that's also one of the networking principles that I use, in the networking. I ask people, how can I help? And that's, or at least I mean, maybe asking when I'm asking questions, sometimes I literally ask, sometimes I would be asking in a different way. But having that, how can I help mindset, that's what I mean, versus what can I get from this person? I think that is so powerful, because if everyone is focusing on how can I be given value versus what can I be getting from this person, I think that we would be having much more sustainable, in a way, networking, or more profound networking, when people care about what you do and they want to know why you do that, for example, or if there is anything that you're currently working on where they can help you. I think that shifts everything, um, and yeah, it kind of makes a difference.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you. And I feel like you said, writing a book, I've written 3, like there's just so much work involved that people don't even realize behind the scenes. And so
Yeah,
kudos to you for just like even putting in all of that effort and that work to interview all those women and to share those stories. And it's super exciting. Congratulations, by the way, because it's such a big deal
thank
to put
you.
a book out into the
Thank
world.
you. I think
Um, mhm.
it's actually impressive. You mentioned 3. I think it's really impressive. Congrats to you. And I think only a writer can understand, an author can understand what it takes. It's like when people write you, I'm writing the book, like, you really get what we're doing.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, and I would say that, everyone who is having the dream, who's having that vision, even if you don't know what you want to write about, I think just let it hang there, sometimes for 10 years. But when the
Yeah.
time comes, you will know, you will figure it out.
Yeah.
Just be patient. I think just having it's like on your vision board or kind of in your goals. Yeah, just kind of, if you feel like writing a book, so just stick to that idea. And I think that if you feel like you have now, like you want to share something with the world, you even can start writing. I mean, I think that once you have that, later on maybe a vision, or you can already make it a reality, you will already have some really incredible notes or stories. I think that it would be actually powerful now that I'm reflecting on that.
Yeah, it really is. Like, I've been working on my next book, but it's been taking much longer than the first 3, and so I just have to keep giving myself a lot of grace and being like, "Hey, the timing will be right, like, when it really finally is time for this book to come forward." And it's sort of been funny because 'cause I'm like, "Well, I wrote 3, like, it should be easier than this," but I will say it doesn't get easier ever. It's more just like, what's the like yeah, like, the book will tell you when it's, like, time to come to fruition, so I'm very
True.
much yeah, I appreciate that from
I
you.
love that. I love that you're talking about giving yourself grace. I think that sometimes we are our worst critics. I feel that for myself. Sometimes we have really these unrealistic expectations. So I would say that, that because we talk also about self-worth, I think just remembering that we are worth of all the great things. And even if we are now going through some really tough time, it won't last forever. Just keep going.
Yes.
Just
Yes,
keep
totally, I
going.
agree with you on that. Well, which leads me to my next question for women who are on, like, the self-worth journey and they're in maybe, when they're in environments like big corporate cultures, it can be challenging sometimes. And what would you recommend to them? Because I think sometimes I see people, like, wanting to change big wholesale cultural things,
Hmm.
and that's, like, to me, the hardest pathway to go through. And, like, how can we now for ourselves actually just get more into that self-worth journey, which I think can make a much bigger impact? And I'm curious, you're like someone who is on that journey, what would you recommend? Like, where would it be a place to start to help yourself?
That's a really good question. Um, I think that having a mentor really helps, or several mentors. Like, you don't have to rely on one mentor, because these are the people who know more than you do, and they can give you really powerful advice. Of course, later on, or generally, not just later on, having a sponsor that definitely helps. And we touched that having allies, both female and male allies. And I think that sometimes you will be successful, sometimes you won't. Sometimes you can change policies, sometimes you cannot. And that is not on you, as long as you try to do your best. But you need to be really strategic and thinking how, if you want to change something, how would that benefit not just you, though it's you are important. But I think when you are pitching something, you need to talk about the impact. And
Mhm.
even if that policy will benefit, for example, working moms or women generally, I think thinking of how potentially everyone will can leverage that could be really powerful if you are convincing some people who are really not so prone to kind of change things. But you need to be finding also maybe compromise if people are open to talking. So it really depends. I think some companies are really supportive and they're listening. I think it's important. And sometimes it's not like changing a policy or something from day one to day two. It takes time. So you need to be patient. But if you found yourself in a super toxic environment and you think like you can't handle it anymore, it might be also time to think of your exit strategy, but also be strategic about that, because you
Mhm.
can negotiate a bunch of stuff and see what are you entitled to as you exit, and exit smartly, because you don't want to be finding yourself in a situation where might be really struggling to find the next job, and see how you make transition. And when you're interviewing, actually to be asking about the benefits or the policies that matter to you. And I think that that is yeah, I mean, there is some, you need to know when it's time to move on.
Yeah, it's so true, right? Just being really smart about that. And I love what you're saying, just like being strategic and the choices you're making. And then if you need to go, no, like make a good plan for yourself so that you can
Yeah,
go.
yeah. I would say that that is so crucial. And sometimes women are. Even recently, I left a comment under one post, similar to like kind of staying in a company with a toxic culture. And what I shared is that women are often kind of conditioned in a way to kind of be grateful for this opportunity, and then you kind of just just kind of get used to it. You think it's maybe it's normal, maybe it's me, because you also don't see, for example, like in tech, you don't see maybe women in technology, and you think maybe it's you are the problem, you don't know how to do it, you are so emotional versus assertive or so. But you realize that it's a workplace or
Mm,
current employer that perhaps is not a good fit for your values, your needs, or yeah, and then you need to know when it's time to move on.
yeah, so well said. Thank you for sharing that, Anna. Well, this is awesome because this leads us to the very fun final portion of this podcast interview, which is rapid fire questions. And so she's like,
Oh my
"They're fun." I was like,
god.
"Don't worry, they're fun.
I'm
They're
bad at
easy."
this. Disclaimer
Super,
to
super
everyone listening.
easy. Um, well, the first one is, what is the last thing you watched on TV? And I'm going to amend this one because it's usually TV, but if you don't watch TV, what's the last book you read?
Oh, TV. Let's start with that. I think it was the tipping point. It was Netflix. Guilty of that. It was actually really cool because it was about female boss. So why I kind of watched it, I saw trailer, and she actually became a CEO of a basketball club.
Hmm.
So it was really powerful, and there are lots of biases about her, different kind of situations, but it was also fun. And I think the actress did a masterful job. But it was just really, I loved seeing how she was, you know, navigating challenging situations and winning. I just love that, and I think that I love that. Love seeing women doing that in real life when they share it on social. Just kind of, it excites me. I love cheering on them, even they see my eyes sometimes, when I can comment or say it to them. And I always make this effort to, it was supposed to be a rapid question.
It's okay. No, the question is rapid. The answer doesn't have to be.
I just feel, I have a very dear friend of mine, like one of my best friends, and she tells me, conversation with you, you always make compliments. You say you look great, or you did this good job, your presentation was great here. And I said, well, I love that. I think women need to hear this more from other women, because it's not about competition, it's about collaboration. And I think the moment we understand that, we can be really, really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, thank you. I'll have to check that. I'm not a huge TV watcher either, but I
I
like
hope I
hearing
hope it's the correct one.
recommendations.
Let me just check on Netflix.
I'm sure we'll find it. Awesome. Okay, and then the next one is, what is on your nightstand at home?
um, it's a glass of water and a hand cream.
Yeah,
Boring stuff.
it's all good. You never know what people have. Some people have like really elaborate setups on their nightstands, and sometimes it's really simple. So you never know.
Yeah, I
Um,
think some, and actually my mobile phone. Guilty of
okay.
that.
Yeah. Totally. Okay, amazing. And then the next question is, when was the last time you tried something new, and what was it?
Mm, what was that? I think I try new stuff all the time. Nothing comes specifically to my mind. Maybe trying out some recipe. I think just kind of experimenting with some food. I like different, because I want to make sure that the food I eat is also diverse, so it
Mm,
reflects that. And especially when it's now going into springtime, they're more like choice of different fruits, and they taste like fruits and veggies. So I'm very excited about that. And especially when I have a really tough period at work, I'm very cautious of what I eat. So whenever I have an opportunity to just kind of prep something healthy for myself, I take that, and I'm intentional about that, because I know that I have to protect my levels of energy, my health, Otherwise,
Mhm.
I won't be as productive as I want to be. So it means that I won't be accomplishing all the great things in life.
Yeah, it's so true. I feel like I've had other people come in and talk about this, but I feel like that home environment and like how you're taking care of yourself makes such a big difference in the long term for how you're doing with work and your career. So amazing. Okay, the last one really easy. So what are the top 3 most used emojis on your phone?
Should I have a look?
You can look. Yeah, people look all the time.
Let me see. I'm kind of curious actually. So it's purple heart.
Mhm.
It's celebrate. And it's a classic smile.
A classic one. Perfect. I love it. Awesome. Well, Anna, thank you so much. I love having you on, and thank you so much for your wisdom and all that you're sharing. And I'm so excited about your book. And so we'll be linking everything in the show notes below for those of you guys who want to do that. But what's the best way to find you, Anna, like in social world or a website?
LinkedIn. A huge fan of
Okay.
LinkedIn.
Yeah. So go follow her on LinkedIn, check out her book, and congratulations for putting that out into the world. I know it's such a big deal. And thank you so much for being a guest for us today on the School of Self Worth.
Thanks, Nicole. Really, really enjoyed it. It was fun. Thank you.